What's going on, guys? I have some pretty good news, I think, for those of you who maybe like the Galaxy Z Fold devices, but you can't bring yourself to use them because of that crease there in the middle, which I think you can see pretty clearly there. For a long time, for the entire time, in fact, Samsung has been using their own sort of design, marching to the beat of their own drum when it comes to the hinge mechanisms, as well as the way that this display is actually folding and therefore creating the crease. Now, the result of their strategies with this is that you wind up having a crease that is very, very visually noticeable when you're on a dark screen, when you're looking at it off axis as you are now, and the light is hitting it a certain way. Now, I have long said that when the display is simply on and you're looking straight at it, you don't really see the crease at all. You can still feel it when you go across it. There is a dip there in the screen that is definitely noticeable. However, the reason the Samsung has gone for this route that creates a crease that is more visible than some of their competitors, which we will be looking at here in a moment, is because evidently this has allowed them to keep the Z Fold devices water resistant. This is something that their competitors do not currently have. Let's look at this image here from the Oppo Find N2 review for Mr. Mobile. And you can see here, what we have is the Z Fold 4 up here and the Oppo Find N2 here. Let's let this progress a bit further because I think he probably lets you see the lighting a bit better. You can see there that that crease on the Fold 4 is, in fact, quite a bit more visible than it is on the Find N2. And that is because the Oppo Find N2, as well as devices like the Moto Razr, use an entirely different design for their folding mechanism, and that creates a different appearance to the crease. Now, the downside has been that it doesn't allow them to make their devices water resistant. And that has apparently just been something that Samsung is not willing to do without. They seem to be more than happy to give you a device that has a very visible crease, as well as a crease that you can feel a lot more than on these other devices, and the trade-off being water resistance. Now, we have this tweet here to look at today from Ice Universe, who has been a relatively accurate leaker, and with Samsung stuff, they tend to be more accurate than not. They tweeted on the 14th, almost midnight, so not that long ago at all. Samsung Electronics plans to apply the droplet hinge structure to the Z Fold 5. Samsung internally calls it a dumbbell hinge. Water drop hinge plus waterproof is finally here. So what are we talking about? This is a water drop, or I guess now they're calling internally a dumbbell hinge or screen folding mechanism. So what you have here is the actual hinge of the device. So take my Z Fold, so the hinge is over here. I keep unlocking this thing. The hinge is over here, and you can see how it opens and closes. And on the inside, this is your screen. So currently, the way that the Fold works, and apparently this in some way affects the water resistance, the IP rating, currently the screen has a much smaller diameter fold to it. It is creased much more harshly, which, like I said, helps with water resistance. But because it is creased more harshly, that apparently creates a deeper crease when it is open and a more visibly noticeable crease. Basically, what we're doing by increasing the radius of the fold, you can see this on the Oppo Find N2, rather than having a very narrow, very thin area of the crease, it's very noticeable, very deep, but very narrow, you've spread that crease out over a much larger area, which makes it a bit less noticeable. It is also true that on these designs, when that screen opens up, the screen is actually pulled more taut, which kind of helps raise things up in the middle and balances everything out. And it appears, if this tweet is true, if this leak is accurate, that is where Samsung is going with the Z Fold 5. They evidently have been waiting for the ability to have this kind of crease, this kind of folding mechanism, but maintain that water resistance. Now, it's important to note that Ice Universe, though, is not the only source for this. There is a Korean publication, which I will link to in the description, that is reporting the exact same thing, but they go into a little bit more detail. They say the biggest feature of this structure, which they're talking about, this new water droplet type, the dumbbell type hinge, you're using the same terminology. When it is folded, the two sides meet each other seamlessly. I'm sure we all know by now that when the Fold 4 closes, there is still a small gap between those two sides. And this is something that a lot of competitors are not still dealing with. When they close totally flat. There is no gap between them. So that is going to be a really nice improvement if this all pans out to be true. Now, from there, jumping to a Phone Arena article, they are reporting that the device is going to weigh about 275 grams, which makes it a little bit heavier than the Fold 4, but apparently that increase in weight is due to an improvement to the camera components. We are evidently going to be going from a 50 megapixel sensor that is in the Fold 4, which I thought, a lot of people say, oh, it was mediocre camera experience. I thought that it was actually pretty good, but at any rate, they're going from 50 megapixels to the S22 Ultra's 108 megapixel camera. Now, this is potentially a really, really good thing because this is not some new sensor. This is a sensor Samsung has been using for a while on the Ultra phones, and they've really gotten the software dialed in a really nice way. So theoretically, they can just bring that algorithm over, bring this hardware over to the Fold 5, and roll on with a really nice camera experience, and perhaps an experience that is becoming of a super ultra flagship premium device like the Fold 5 is going to be. They also add that the telephoto will be going from that 3x optical to a 64 megapixel telephoto camera that is 2x optical. Now, they will be leaning more on a hybrid zoom at that level, right? Because now, I believe, what is it, a 10 megapixel 3x optical? Well, if you're at 2x and 64 megapixels, you could zoom in 2x optical, but then you're going to have a digital crop that's going to be able to take you in pretty darn far and still have really nice quality, and then round it out with a 12 megapixel ultra wide that just seems to be in stasis. No one seems to ever touch their ultra wide cameras. It's all about that zoom and those primary lenses. At any rate, this all sounds like some really nice upgrades to the Fold 5, right? So a lessened crease, a device that can fold all the way flat, a massive bump in the primary camera, potentially a bump in the telephoto. Really all starting to sound like an absolutely incredible device. I still wish they would address the aspect ratio a little bit, make that external screen a bit less like a TV remote. But nonetheless, it sounds like Samsung is getting very, very serious with the Fold 5, and we have to keep something in mind. I've talked about the crease already in this video, and every other competitor of Samsung's already has a crease that is less noticeable, but none of them are launching in North America. However, the Pixel Fold is coming to North America sometime, we really hope, this year. Microsoft's Surface Duo 3 is rumored to be switching to a single folding OLED, and it will launch in North America either at the end of this year or sometime in the following year. So competition is about to really heat up in North America, and it seems as though Samsung is taking that a bit more seriously and kind of jumping ahead on their typical very small iterations we've seen from Fold all the way up to Fold 4. Fold 4 to Fold 5 might be quite an impressive jump, and this is something we can all, I think, get very, very excited to see. As always, links to all this in the description down below. Let me know what you think about all this stuff in those comments. I would love to have a nice conversation on how excited you are about these changes potentially coming to the Galaxy Z Fold 5. Of course, I will be covering that device on this channel as we move forward. So subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Guys, I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.